Welcome to the Also Spurs podcast, where today we will be previewing our game at Everton, a team off the back of 4 wins without conceding a goal. But can injury-ravaged Spurs nick another unexpected result? And with us to discuss it all, we have Deej in North Carolina. How are you, mate?
Doing good.
We've got Basil Forty over in Basel. How are you?
Tip top.
And of course, we have Johnny in Dublin. You well?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm effervescent. I'm effervescent, pal. I'm like an Alka-Seltzer. How are you?
Jesus.
I
was waiting for the how are you? Yeah, I am in Dublin. That's correct. Yeah. How are you? Anyway, how are you, Jim?
I'm
Over in
doing
deepest
good.
Surrey. You're good.
In
Johnny's got all
Hampshire, I love
picky
you,
all
though,
of
not
a
that
Hampshire.
far.
Oh, sorry. Hampshire. Yeah. Robin Smith country.
Oh, we'll also be going over some questions from people who wrote in some from the last pod as well again. So yeah, if you do like to ask questions and have us read them out, just pop them in the comments section of the YouTube video or follow us on Twitter, which is just at OsoSpurs, and you can, respond to our questions, our request for questions as it comes out each week. So we'll start with, of course, the Everton game that's coming up. They're off the back of 4 wins without conceding a goal. So you were to look at some of the stats around Everton, right? What are we saying?
So I think if you look at the underlying stats over the line, well, this is for the whole season actually, but how they're going to set up against us? They're going to set up against us in a low block. They average 39% possession for the whole season, and they haven't won a match where they've had over 50% possession. Every match that they've won has been under 50% possession. But they have the highest direct speed in the league, which is a measure of how quickly they move the ball forwards in attack. And they are really quite aggressive as well. They've got, what was the stat I was looking at? They're second in attempted tackles in the league. Second only to us.
Oh.
And they are extremely good when they get the ball upfield at set pieces. They score 7.9% of their set pieces. So for every 100, they score 7.9 goals. And they are defensively very sound. So they're the third best on XG against in the league. And they've conceded the third fewest goals in the league up to the 14th of December, which I think was the last game. So basically, it says that they're really tight. They're well drilled in terms of their defence, and they hit you really, really quick on the break. I think I was looking at the injury list as well. It looks like Doucouré is going to be injured for this game, which is a big loss for them because he's had 664 pressures this season, which is 100 more than the next best in the league. So they rely on him to get out and close the game down quite quickly for them. And if he's missing, it might mean there's a bit of space in that midfield. But overall, defensively, they're sound. They don't let a lot get through them. And the XG against means that they don't let you have chances either. So I think the wide players are going to be key for us. And that brings us on to the conversation, I guess, about Johnson, about whether he's going to be fit or not. Currently 50-50, I think.
Yeah, that's it's looking positive at the moment from what you're reading, but the club's being a bit quiet, which has me a little bit suspicious. But there's also one more stat to add to layer on to those interesting things you mentioned there, size, the zones of control, which basically shows what parts of the pitch a team dominate. Everton don't dominate any part of the pitch except for pretty much their own penalty box, which implies we know how this game's going to go before it's kicked off. It's going to be a Sean Dyche 101 special. They're going to try and nick that goal from the set piece with a really strong side, and they're going to happily sit back and let us have a lot of the ball.
They're going to defend very deep and very narrow. That's how they work.
Yeah, exactly. Johnny, how are you feeling going to this one? Are we going to be walking out of the stadium full of adulation and joy, or are we going to walk away frustrated with our Christmas turkeys tasting slightly sour?
No, I believe we will arrest their winning streak. I think we will win. It's not going to be an easy game. Obviously, they are very much in form. Looking at the sides they've beaten, I mean, Burnley are kind of falling apart a bit. Chelsea are no great shakes. Newcastle, well, they can be great, but that was a home game, and Newcastle are not great on the road. Forest was a solid 1-0 win. To be honest, I watched the United game. I thought they'd actually be able to do a job, and it's funny that the United was a team that turned them over 3-0. So I mean, they've done well. They've obviously kind of they've been galvanized maybe by the points deduction has had a positive effect on them in an ironic way. Their manager, I think most of people who would know much about the Premier League would rate Sean Dyche, and he did a great job at Burnley over the years, and I think that it's going to be a difficult game. But I think there's also the fact that they've got a match tonight in the Carabao Cup. There's bound to be. I mean, for Everton, it's an opportunity for them, isn't there? There's a lot of good teams have gone out of that competition. So I would imagine that they're going to field a fairly strong side, which has obviously got to be to our advantage. So, that's something to consider. I've seen bits and pieces of them. The only other points I'd kind of maybe make just from my background knowledge rather than any deep research, just looking at their side, they've got some young players, but in the centre of the defence, they're two fairly old, very experienced guys. They're good, but Keane and Tarkowski, they are good defenders. But in terms of pace, you'd like to think if we can be direct and attack with pace and move the ball as quickly as we can, if we get those opportunities, they might be a little bit vulnerable to that. But obviously, they're very organised. And the point you made there, Si, about the set pieces, like Spurs have been, and I really shouldn't say this because I don't want to tempt fate, but unlike in previous seasons, I'm not worried when we concede a corner. I'm pretty confident, I know. I shouldn't have said this, but no, do you know what I mean? Though I'd say you boys would agree with me. Like certainly, we look pretty well drilled. Also, in the really since last season, I think we've been pretty good. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what it feels like, that we're pretty organised. So I don't know. I think if we've got our best players on the pitch, we should be okay.
I guess the only fly in that ointment was the Villa goal, the equaliser, right, where we looked short in the middle of that defence, and they got some big boys, Everton, to get on the end of that. So that's the only one where I think that we couldn't do much about that, and we were just out-tooled.
Yeah,
I think it was just a good ball. And
it was
just
really
a lucky run from Torres. I don't think that Torres didn't jump. Pau Torres is terrible in the air. As much as people are going to say, "Oh, but he scored a header," he's not
a free header, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. He was a free header, and I think both of his feet were on the ground. Well, one of them may have been up for running, but it wasn't like it was some sort of like Pedro Porro on the back post, and then prime Cristiano Ronaldo comes up and just heads it in. Like, that's not happening.
No.
I think that we've schemed well enough to try to prevent that from happening as much as possible. It obviously is something that could occur. We don't have the tallest players in the world, and honestly, Everton kind of do. So that's definitely something I would be worried about. But it's not something I'm overly concerned about. I am also enthused about them having a game in the midweek because they also don't have the deepest squad. They have a couple of injuries, like you mentioned, Doucouré, who's kind of their midfield engine. Dele Alli, Mahid. I think he might still be. Yeah, he's still out.
I think
he's still out, and then there's a couple of fringe older players like Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman that are kind of week to week, but none of those I think are players that would have any significant impact on the game.
Yeah, and I spoke to it was a very brief conversation, but we did speak to Rob Guest from Golden Guest because we were hoping to get him onto this episode as he's an Everton fan. But he wasn't so keen on going onto a rival pod. But he did say, God, look at us, so threatening.
We're coming for them.
But he did give us kindly say, we were asking, how do you expect Everton to go for this in the League Cup? Are they going to go full strength or rest up? And the feeling from him was Dyche is going full strength at every single game in the League Cup, so he will play the strongest 11, and that's a nice advantage for us. I really thought we needed that breather more than most teams, especially Sonny. He's carrying this injury all the time. To give him, I'm hoping they said just sit in the ice bath for 3 days, and then you can come out and you can go back to training and still get 4 days ahead of the game. Whereas and it's not overestimate, like, you know what it's like when you play teams 4 or 5 hour drive away. It is, you do lose another day's training, and it is pretty, oh God, poor footballers, they have to sit on a nice coach. But it is tiring, and it is advantage to be at home. So that gives me some hope. But do we see them boys, Kulusevski going back into the creative role and Johnson on the right if he's fit? What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but is there an element now of physicality though that he could just be, you know, it might be a really challenging game for him, whereas Kulusevski's a big strong guy that you kind of want running at them.
But you also want that big strong physicality in the middle of the pitch, and we don't have that. I mean, we do have that, but we don't have that in like a 10 role, because really, assuming Lo Celso isn't fit to go, it's either Kulusevski or Gil. And if there's one player on my team that I'm confident would get bent in half in this game, it would be Bryan Gil. No offense to him or anything, he's just still not bulked up quite enough to play in a game with I'm assuming the edge that would be present in this game. So I think Kulusevski in the middle is fine, especially because Everton plays so centrally, like Sai mentioned earlier. I think that being able to have someone who can try and beat the wing back 1v1, because I think that looking at how they lined up against Burnley, I'm assuming they'll also line up against us, because while we have better personnel, Burnley kind of try to play like a similar style of like possession-based football. I think that they'll probably line up in a back five, so having someone who can take out the wing back and then kind of get rid of it before they have to deal with the wide center back is something that would be nice and wouldn't require the utmost level of physicality, which is why I think that having the physicality of someone like Kulu could be used better in the center, especially because, like I said, as we saw in the Nottingham Forest game, not having Kulu in the middle and having a midfield three of, you know, Skip, Højbjerg, and question mark, not Kulusevski, kind of severs that link between our defensive play and our attacking play.
Yeah.
So having someone that's as progressive as Kulusevski is really important in that role.
Yeah, agree. And there's an interesting, I saw and read earlier that Kulusevski has created the most chances in the league from ball carries. So that was an interesting stat. Whereas Everton's biggest threat in terms of creativity is Dwight McNeil. So and there's no one else really in that team statistically who's created anything meaningful all season. So I think if we can shut him out, which I'm sure Ange will be looking to do, it's just such a shame we're going to be missing Udogie for this game, isn't it? That's a big loss both defensively and offensively. And also, guess which keeper in the league has the best goals prevented stat? There's no surprises. It's who could that be?
David Raya.
Is it Slick Vic?
Slick Vic has prevented 5 goals that were expected to go in this season, which is more than anyone else in the league. So go on, Big Vic.
Goddamn cheap options.
Yes, so we'll get into that one another episode, I think. But, so I'm actually feeling reasonably optimistic about it. The only downside, obviously, how do we feel about Højbjerg instead of Basuma? Johnny, how does that make you feel? Or is it going to be Skippy? We skip?
Oh, no.
Okay, where would you go with it then?
I definitely prefer Højbjerg, to be honest. Thought he did all right. I thought the second half against Forest, he was pretty good, to be honest. Also, obviously, the experience that he has. I don't know. I think you know what the point that Deej was making there about Bryan Gil. Okay, it's definitely nowhere near as pronounced, but I definitely think that you're not going to mess around with Højbjerg the way that I think Skip's got a little bit. It's not the same physicality as Højbjerg, so I think that and his ability to break up play, he's dependable, generally speaking. So I think he's, for when he's come on, especially, we had this discussion before, haven't we? He's like kind of done better when he's come off the bench rather than starting. But I don't know who else we're going to put in there. Really, I wouldn't be putting in Skippy. What I was wondering, what you boys thought was just if if Johnson's not playing, if Johnson's not fit, and we can't bring Lo Celso in, if he's not fit as well, then what's the midfield going to be? If is Sadecki's going to be in there with Sarr and Højbjerg, then does Brian have to go out on the wing? Do we have to have Brian in that situation?
Would you say just play with 10 men instead?
Start Jamie Donnelly.
Yeah.
I think honestly, probably it'll be Sarr, Skip, and Højbjerg, and I will feel very, very bad for you lads at the game.
Shit. Yeah.
Also, I do want to mention in my last speak, I did forget Sarr existed. My bad. Love you, Sarr.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be very reliant on Kulu and Son and Johnson to have a... I'm just hoping and picturing of that. I can see it happening as Kulu and Johnson finding some kind of link up with Kulu Johnson running in behind is what I'm kind of clinging on to there, because I think they're just going to nullify Sonny. They're just going to say, you're not very big. Here's two massive centre-backs, which are going to try and overcrowd you out of this game and make you work so hard, because no one on the left is going to be a threat. And they know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, because it'll be interesting to see how they handle having both Johnson and Son, assuming they both are in the game for a meaningful amount of time, or both in the game at all. Because I think that the game plan from Forest, from playing a back five, was basically to just double Son at every opportunity, which did create chances, especially when Kulusevski was operating in that left 10 role where Son could play back to Kulu. Kulu could figure something out in the box. But that obviously became a much more effective strategy once we moved Kulu out wide. We didn't really have that creative option behind Son. And if Kulusevski does have to end up playing on the right, I think that that's something that can cause problems, because then our player behind him is going to be either Brian Heel, which is honestly probably the best option that I would say we have there. I don't think it'll be the option we go with, but purely from an attacking sense, he's the best option we have. Or it's going to be one of Højbjerg, Skip, or Sarr, probably Højbjerg or Skip. And then obviously our inverted wing back there will most likely be Emerson Royal, which is going to be something.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we put Royale at right back and Porro at right wing if Johnson's out?
I would say that if we had Udogie.
Who goes in the left then?
Emerson's got to go left back, right? He's played him at left back previously, so I think he'll stick with Davis in the centre and you'll see Emerson at left back.
Davies left back and Skip centre back. We're getting to that level.
Jesus,
not quite there yet.
Fucking hell.
At least you have mentioned.
Well, you've got some Scrabble tiles that you're just pulling a team out from.
I'm just thinking we're a couple of injuries away from that kind of madness, but we're also a few weeks away from having...
centre back before Skip.
Yeah, true.
I think so. I think you're a couple of mushrooms away from madness, mate.
Yeah,
where you're going.
Yeah, but we're also 2 or 3 weeks away from having a squad that looks really healthy again.
Yeah.
So
I think Porro's got a big role to play in this game. I think I think the right to everything that we're saying here, the left is going to be looking a little bit lightweight, and I think the right is going to be where we make the difference. And if you've got Johnson and Porro coming inside, dragging the wing back inside at times, I think will be a really critical role that he's playing, because Emerson, as solid as he is defensively, and we do love him, and he's turned it round, etc., and all of that stuff. He's no Udogie, and he can't do that inverted wing back role like Udogie does.
He scored the same amount of goals.
Yeah, but it's not the same though. It doesn't create the same space, and this is where, to the point, they'll double up on Son and Emerson. Don't let Emerson run inside without tracking him, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. As we know, Ange sends a survey out before the game and just make sure.
Yeah.
He checks where they want to play, as he said. Yeah, so I'll just quickly put one of the questions out as we're talking before we move on to some more topics about the game. But Mullen Joe said, "Are YouTube podcasters contributing / heightening the debate over our yellow and red cards, adding to the stupidity of some people suggesting Cuti Romero should be sold? If we were to, then who should we sell next? Basuma and Udogie?" I think where he's going with this is, are we being way too critical of players at the moment based on their discipline? Good players. I think, as the Fighting Cock said, let's not put Romero and Basuma in the same bracket here. Like, there's maybe an argument to say if Basuma got 5 red cards in a season, he's not worth the hassle. But to say Romero isn't worth the hassle is slightly crazy. Do you agree?
I think that the issue is being exacerbated by our lack of squad depth from years of mismanagement and our injury crisis that sucks. And like realistically, if we had a full strength squad, if we had no injuries, which is obviously pretty much impossible, but if we, even if we had like minimal injuries, if we had like even like the injuries we had like last season, it's like it sucks to have like these kind of card issues like come up at basically the same time. But it's something that we could more or less handle. Like if we had the ability to say, okay, Højbjerg, you play, and Basuma's role, sorry, you're there, and then we put Madison up there. That's still a very strong midfield. We aren't having this conversation about do we have to put Brian Heel in a midfield three because we don't have Brennan Johnson and we don't have Basuma and we don't have like the part of the issue is just being unlucky with injuries. Part of the issue is that we are Tottenham and anything that you can have to make us look bad that you know the media will latch onto. We've already got the rumblings of why won't Ange just replace Pep at City rolling around, which is just, come on, it's been like 4 months. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, obviously part of it is also just the...
It's hilarious.
Go ahead.
I just say it's just so funny. It's making me laugh. Think about it. It's like the same people saying Ange is a fraud who's got no plan B are also saying he should go to Man City, which is kind of saying like we're just pissed off that he's good and I don't have Ange, and therefore he's shit and he's a fraud, or he should go to Man City. Just please don't leave him at Tottenham Hotspur.
Exactly.
It's an interesting question though, and it's a good question. But when you're looking at the discourse surrounding the Basuma and Romero, and I suppose maybe the Udogie situation with discipline, like there's a hell of a difference between calling out and criticizing their decision making in specific instances, and paying for them to be sold. And I think it's probably a very, very small number of people that actually are serious about that, because, and especially in fairness, in all three cases, they were undoubtedly. Particularly the two defenders out of the three have made a huge positive contribution to our season so far. It is a bit of a disappointment the way Basuma's kind of in each of the occasions where he's been red carded, they've been such stupid bookings. But again, it comes down to, we were talking about like the inconsistency of referees. Like it was in the Liverpool Man United game, I think somebody dived and there was no consequence whatsoever. And it's like, I was immediately thought of what happened to Basuma against that Luton, and like he was right to get that second yellow and to go off. There's no arguments there, but it's just again like just this real lack of consistency, which is so frustrating and so unfair. We've obviously benefited from like the Liverpool one. Everyone's going to keep bringing that one out, but I think that my view on those guys, I suppose Destiny is very young. He was really unlucky. We had a discussion the other day about that booking, especially again when you're looking at all the Yates challenges that didn't get cautioned, and that was a really, really soft yellow. So I would definitely give Udogie pretty much a pass. And like Romero, you do want him to play with that edge. And as Gigi said a number of occasions, I think that when you have Van de Ven alongside him, he's not going to make half those challenges. He's not going to be forced into situations where you're going to do that. So I don't know. Basuma is a bit of an annoying one, though. I hope and I assume and just having a word with them about this, because it does cost the team big time. They are getting paid a lot of money, and if you're messing up and you're jeopardizing, the ability of your teammates to do the best you can, which you're invested in as well, then that's not a good thing. So I do think that he is letting down. I think he's letting us down.
I do think that... Sorry, just one more quick thing. I do think that the narrative about our players is also impacted a little bit by, like what Johnny said, soft yellows, which has happened not only to Udogie, but it happened to Romero in the West Ham game, where Romero got yellow carded for, in my opinion, just a legal challenge. And at worst, it's like it's an iffy give it as a foul, but it's nowhere near a yellow. And then everyone has dived in the Premier League at least once this season. At least every single attacker and every single midfielder. It happens. I don't like it, but if you're going to give Bissouma a second yellow card, that kind of kicks off this thing, because if Bissouma has one red, we're not having this conversation. But because Bissouma got a red card for diving, that basically no one else in the league has happened. I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I feel like I would have seen if this had happened a separate time. But nobody's getting second yellows for diving. That literally only occurred because the Liverpool game happened last week.
It's so inconsistent, like you say. It's not like we don't feel like victims in this. We're not Liverpool fans, but we do feel as fans. Every fan base feels like a victim at the moment because we hyper-analyze everything with VAR now, and you just see if every weekend of match fixtures, if you there's similar types of fouls that happen at every game, and some are bookings and some are not. But there's no clear explanation as to why that is. Even the referees can't justify it because it's a subjective decision based on emotion. And then people start going, he was a Newcastle fan, he was an Arsenal fan. When he was 12, he dated Ian Wright's daughter. So that's why he hates Spurs. And they tag at PGMOL, get out, you're corrupt.
I think though that there's a lot of differences as we've just. I think there is a lot of differences as you guys have alluded to across the three that were highlighted there, and I don't disagree with any of it. I think that the potential consequence for I think Udogie young, he's going to learn. He's been caught out with some silly yellows. Okay, fine, that's just a learning curve. Bissouma, though, the consequence for him is that he loses his place to Bentancur when he comes back. And he's got to get that under control and get back to his early season form, which he's going to struggle with now because he's not back until Bentancur is pretty much fit. So there's a bigger consequence to him than getting sold. It's more like he drops to the bench and Bentancur becomes number one choice.
True.
The thing about Kuti is, and listen, I love him to pieces, but there will come a time that if he's going to be missing 7 or 8 league games a season because of these silly challenges, you've got to think that I don't think that there's a Premier League winning side that has a first-class centre-back that misses that level of games through suspension. And plus, he might get the odd injury here and there. He could end up missing a third of the games of a season if you're not careful. So he's got to get it under control. Otherwise, it's to Johnny's point, it's going to have a massive impact on the side. And at some point, if we want to be challenging for the title rather than top 4, he's got to rein that edge back down a little bit to what he was at the start of the season, with him and Mickey not picking up a booking or not giving a foul away between them in the first 5 or 6 games, I think it was. And they were so controlled and so sharp. And I think you see a different Kuti with Mickey next to him. Absolutely, 100%.
We had another question as well. I'm going to put out here. This one is from GDJ Richards on YouTube. With the return in form of Richarlison, should he stay or should he go now in January?
Unless we're getting a ridiculous offer from Saudi Arabia, I don't see a reason why he should go. I mean, we're not going to recoup the money from him, and unless one of two things needs to happen: either we find a good deal on a striker that we are confident that can play in the Premier League right now, which I don't currently see, or we get absolute mind-boggling money for him from Chelsea, maybe Chelsea, who knows? From Saudi Arabia in January. But other than that, I think, like, as you can see, he's healthier, he's playing better, he's not Kane, he can score goals now, which is good.
And
especially in an Ange where you don't need to necessarily do a whole lot of ball carrying. You just kind of need to tap the ball in at the end.
Listen, let's just unpick the question a little bit. Return to form, I think, might be a bit previous. He's had 2 good games.
Hey man, that's 2 more good games than he's had this season.
Yeah, exactly. Listen. I've been a Richie skeptic all season, and I want him to do well. The other thing that he does bring, though, and it will be really useful against Everton, is he brings a level of energy in that front line that goes unnoticed a lot of the time. So yes, if he comes back to full form, you don't get rid of him, because I think if he comes back to full form in that number 9 role, he scores 15 goals a season for us with Madison, with decent wide players, he scores 15 goals a season. And even though I've been sceptical about him, you certainly keep him till the end of the season and see how he performs between now and the end of the season and see what comes up then.
And Johnny, I'm going to give this question to you amongst us loud gits who often leave you there nodding politely and waiting for your opportunity to talk. This is from Zed Cameron. He says, do you think, I'm going to say it's to Johnny, dear Johnny, do you think going forward...
Hi Zed, how's it going?
Hey Z
Are you
Cameron.
sure he's not Z? Because
Z.
What's a Z?
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
Dear Johnny.
Zed has put a whole
baby.
war between us all now. Yeah. Sorry. Go for it, Jim. Go for it.
Dear Johnny,
I'm all ears.
What skin cream are you using? Dear Johnny, do you think going forward we should be playing Son on the left and Richie through the middle against low block teams, but Son through the middle and Richie as an impact sub when playing more open front foot teams?
Ooh. I mean, I suppose,
yeah,
probably. But at the moment, we don't have the creative spark, and I think if you have Madison in the lineup as well, that makes a difference in each case. But yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Okay.
I would be inclined that if personnel issues persist, I would be inclined to maybe even say Richie on the left. He played. I mean, I'm just thinking back to the Liverpool game. He played pretty well in that game. Especially, yeah. I mean, he's not. I don't know. I feel like we've gotten this image in our head of Richie as this kind of like Romelu Lukaku type, can't control the ball player, which isn't. It is not the case. He's not like Ronaldinho or like anything like that, but he's a capable dribbler. He's a capable crosser. He's not like our other crossing challenged Brazilian. God bless his soul. But he's I think he could play. He can still do a job on the left. He can do a job in the middle. I think him being in the middle against low block teams is pretty important,
especially
considering
the
he's
aerial threat that he
I was
has.
going to say
well.
that. Yeah. And it just makes my heart hurt every day for Ivan Perisic.
I know.
We have another question. It's more of a statement than a question, but it's our most liked comment under the last video. And this is to you, Johnny, and Deej. And actually, Si, you were on it as well, were you? The Forest win? You there?
No,
you
I
weren't on that
wasn't,
one.
mate. I was in the pub.
Got you. And it's to you two, because you're a pair of miserable gits that last call. We come back to win. And I was buzzing and you dragged me down. He says,
that's right.
You were actually. What was wrong with you two? Were you
they
tired?
were miserable.
Were you tired?
He just said, cheer up, boys. And that was the most liked comment of the video. Stop bringing us all down when we win games and be a bit more positive.
Bastards.
Right? Yeah, you miserable bastards.
That was me in good form. What are you on about?
That was Johnny on the up.
I was buzzing. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And just a shout out to Greg Robinson as well, because he often leaves a good comment in there. And he said, we got away with it. Basuma put the results in jeopardy with a silly challenge. Could have gone from bad. Could have gone bad from that point. Luckily, we hang on. But I think this is the thing that the players are hanging on to these results with the right mentality now, because they've got the right manager to motivate them and have them. We don't do that Mourinho thing of just everyone behind the ball until you concede.
But you could say the last 20 minutes of that game, we were in total control of that, even though we were down to 10 men. We didn't look in danger at all.
That's good. And Peter Mentor, you're a regular one as well. So hard fought 3 points, bagged, sometimes grinding out the rain, ugly, but the boys did good, and I think that's fair.
Yes. Nice one, Peter.
I think I can be a bit more. I don't know. Happy about the win in hindsight. I was just frustrated with Bissouma mostly at the time. Not even necessarily frustrated at Bissouma, but frustrated that I was going to have to deal with a week of people calling for him to be sold on Twitter.
Also, I think the Johnson thing at the time, it seemed potentially a lot worse than
it
looks like.
I was worried. He looked still, didn't he, on the floor? Shall we wrap up with some score predictions, guys, for the game? Johnny, what say you?
I'm going to say 1-0.
Ooh.
1-0 to Everton
yeah.
from Johnny.
I know, I don't like it, but I've got a feeling. Yeah, I'll say, yeah.
No, 1-0
It's not gonna be
to Spurs. And who's the goal scorer, please?
Pedro Porro.
What minute?
Wow.
Pedro Porro, 72.
Pedro Porro,
Top ends.
72nd minute. Johnny,
Yeah.
order is in. Si, what we saying?
Get your bets on.
2-0. We'll score fairly early and then late on. And also hoping that Romero and Sarr don't get a booking so that they get closer to their yellow cards being wiped midway through the season.
Yeah. And Deej?
I am going to wish upon you lads a good game. I will wish for a 3-0. I will say that Son scores a goal to cutting in from the left. Just, right foot, curl it,
Top
far
corner.
post. Son classic. We'll get a goal from Richarlison. It will be a header, but the ball just goes straight up in the air, and then it comes back down, and then he heads it again, and then it goes in.
Double header.
And then our third goal will be an own goal from an Emerson cross that's so unbelievably misplaced that no one's expecting it.
Will it be one of those?
One of
will
his
it be one of those
crosses.
Yeah.
It will be one of those classics where it's like the argument over whether it was deliberate or not, but it's up there for the Puskas Award, and
He'll be winking at Jim in the South Stand when he crosses it. Oh,
Yeah,
some of that.
Yeah, have some of that. He will be. I'm going to go for. We'll be 1-0 down at half time, but we'll score in the 80th minute. It'll be 1-1, and that'll be from Sonny. He'll limp off the pitch, not injured, just exhausted at the 88th. And in the 94th minute, we will have a Richarlison header coming in from a Porro cross to win the game, and then we can all enjoy our Christmas and have a wonderful celebration in the stadium before Christmas kicks off.
Sounds good, brother.
Yeah. And a yellow card to Romero. But anyway, let's
course,
shut down.
Thanks for that.
Just to get Deej's reaction there. No, and a no yellow card from Romero. He'll stay strong. He'll save that booking so he misses the Man United game.
Jim, when you said Richie's going to score a header in the 94th minute, is it going to be when he heads the ball and it goes really, really high up in the air and then comes back down and he heads it again?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, double header.
Yes. Excellent.
Double header.
Don't want to miss that.
And there'll be a massive VAR check as well for a foul on the keeper, and we'll be able to wait 3 minutes.
Is he the Polish centre-back? Massive VAR check.
VAR check.
Massive Vargy. The massive Polish centre-back. Oh, very good.
He's
very
a big boy.
Right, guys, up the Spurs.
Come
I'm
on,
looking forward to seeing you all.
Come on, the Spurs.
Have fun at the game, yo.